It's an issue that's been obviously very dynamic over the past 5 to 7 years in particular, since President Hu Jintao and Premier Wen Jiabao came into office. But also right now, I think, is a little bit of a challenge to discuss because of the global financial crisis. I'm going to talk about the trends that I've seen, both in terms, as Clay mentioned, both in terms of what's going on in China's environment, but also China's global environmental impact. And then, wherever possible, bring a little nuance in terms of the very, very immediate issue of the global financial crisis and how I think that might be affecting China's overall effort to address its environmental challenges. I think what we're going to see is that many of the major cities in China, Beijing, Shanghai, are going to be facing air quality issues much more similar to those that we confront. Cars, for example. China now is adding 18,000 new cars to its roads daily. By 2030, estimates are that it will surpass the United States as the largest car market in the world. And some of you may have read that in January and February, both for the first time in history, Chinese car sales surpassed those in the United States. Of course, this has a lot to do with the global financial crisis. China's reported that they've closed 670,000 factories, which is an incredible number if you stop to think about it. Many of these are in southern China, and not surprisingly, southern China is reporting improvements in its air quality over the past few months. But I think these are likely to be short-term impacts, and the pressures to reopen factories or to maintain polluting factories in order to sort of stabilize the employment issue, I think will be pretty fierce over the next 6 to 12 months. China has 6 largest freshwater reserves in the world, but only 25% of the world's per capita availability of water. Beijing has only 1/30 of the world's per capita availability of water, which is why you're constantly hearing about Beijing trying to tap into water from neighboring provinces. And so, $42 billion lost because water is either polluted and ruins crops, or there's not enough water to run factories. So water-related economic costs. $13 billion lost because of acid rain. $8 billion lost because of desertification. It should be understood as a multi-layered approach, and beginning with the central government in Beijing. And here, I think, is one of the weakest parts of China's environmental protection effort in many respects, because they maintain a very small central government environmental protection apparatus. They devote only about 1.3% of their GDP to environmental protection. That number was supposed to increase to 1.5% during the last 5-year plan and did not. Chinese environmental scientists say it should be at least 2.2% just to keep the situation from deteriorating. As I said at the outset, China faces an extraordinary challenge. I think it's difficult for us to appreciate, both because it's just a country of 1.3 billion people, but also because, again, it is really a country that has to deal with the problems of a developing country and the problems of an advanced industrialized country, and a country that is just transforming at a rate that I think is very difficult for us to fathom. Many people say, well, China's just going through what we went through, and they're just going to do the same thing. They'll remediate, they'll get it right later on. But China's not at the same stage that we were ever at. A country that's 20% deserts, not the United States. And some of the things that they're doing cannot be or will not be able to be redressed in 100 years or 200 years. Bohai Sea, they're saying, level of contaminants is 2,000 times above the national regulation. The prawn catch there has dropped by 90%. That's something that's going to be very difficult to change. More reform needs to happen. And when I talked about the local political economy and the role that that plays, I think both on the economic side and the political side, China can't get much further than it already has with some far more fundamental reform of the way that it does business.